Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome back for yet another episode of the Enough to Keep Going gaming podcast featuring grown-ups who game. This is episode number 31 for Tuesday, the 6th of February, the year of our gaming 2018. Here with me, almost as always, I have my two faithful co-hosts, Mr. Osiris Prime. How you doing, Prime?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. Glad to be still on East Coast time.
Oh, yeah.
It's a very positive thing. We will talk about that later.
Okay.
Mr. Swissguard, how you doing, buddy?
He's stuck in...
Oh, is he frozen?
He must be. I just see an anime character right now. That's it.
Oh, man.
And he's muted. So he was having some issues. He had to reboot his modem before, so I don't know. He might be having issues again.
So about 50% of our crew is impacted by infrastructure issues currently. So we will be trying to get through. It started last month and is continuing into the month of February. So everybody has some things to take care of, and there are some material items that are impacted. So we will continue to sally forth.
Yeah, it's not a podcast unless one of us has a problem.
Right. Now we have two Swisses.
I know.
I don't know how that happened, but
how you doing, man?
Okay, it's like really frustrating tonight.
It's double the fun.
But
all right, man. Well, hang in there as long as you can. As long as we have you around for at least some of the podcasts, that's a good thing. So I gotta interrupt our regular plan, and because I gotta ask two rapid fire questions, burning questions. One, is it just me, and I know I'm gonna get it. So we should feel free to still use these as news stories for the E2KG and 30 show this Thursday, because we're not going to get into a deep discussion about this. But I got to ask, Red Dead Redemption delayed till 2019. Is that or is that not a delay? I feel like it's a delay, but I heard some other podcasts talking today as if Rockstar had never officially announced it for 2000. But I was almost certain that there was an announcement that it was holiday season 2017 and it was already delayed to 2018. And we were thinking, well, that should mean that it should be Q1, Q2 at worst. And I feel like the push to October of this year is a delay. I feel like there was some type of mention that the intention was for it to come out last year. And then there was a belief that when they pushed to 2018, it would be early.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure I heard the same thing about 2017, that it was going to come probably at the end of 2017. But even if that wasn't the case, they definitely said it was going to be coming early 2018. So there was at least that one delay, possibly two. So, and I heard that too. I think it was on one of the IGN podcasts, maybe, where they were talking about that, like, oh, it's not really a delay. I'm like, well, yeah, it is, because you gave, it was a kind of a, broader date or time, but I mean, it still was kind of a time. So I don't know. It's just kind of weird how they're just kind of just brushing it under the rug, so to speak.
Yeah, and it's not a big deal. I mean, but let's call it what it is. I don't know. And I definitely want to have a deeper discussion. I honestly can't remember. I had a second burning question. I can't remember what it was. I know one of the things that's been sticking in my craw is I think everybody has it wrong about Xbox Game Pass. But I hear a lot of gamers and a lot of journalists saying this is the death knell of Microsoft. This is them admitting defeat, and I absolutely don't read it that way. But
yeah, I have to agree.
Okay, cool. We're in one accord. Swiss, my guess is you're abstaining on an opinion since you are not an Xbox gamer.
Yeah, as far as Xbox, I'm out. As far as Red Dead Redemption, it's a delay because, they put like a goal down and it wasn't a firm thing or anything. But the fact that they had to announce it, like, it's not really coming out until then, they didn't herald it like it was a release date announcement. They, like you said, they swept it under the rug. It was kind of an admission of, it's not going to be as soon as we'd hoped. But I'd always rather a company delay a game and make it right than rush it out and have it suck for 6 months while they use the public as beta testers.
Swiss, have you settled on a mechanical keyboard yet?
I got a Logitech G413.
Okay, all right. Nice board. Nice board. It's inspired by you and some discussions at work. I went ahead and just pulled the trigger on recapitalizing my keyboards in the lab for 2018 just to get that out of the way. My experiment has been, again, much like we were talking about my phone in the pre-show, was to not go for specific name brands. There are, as is the case with mice, which I found out last year, there's an amazing number of just, I don't want to call them generic. I don't feel like they're like, I don't feel like this is like the generic, like white label food you buy in the grocery store. There are good solid keyboards available on Amazon that are not like Corsair, Rocat, Logitech boards. A lot of the types of keyboards that I've bought over the last few years. So that are surprisingly and amazingly good. And actually have some features that when I was buying name brand boards, I felt like they were too expensive, so I didn't go for those higher features. So yeah, it's been pretty cool. We will have to talk more about your PC build actually here shortly. So Prime, rapid fire round of playlist. What have you been playing?
I've been playing a little bit of Rocket League, PUBG, of course, because that's my go-to right now. And then actually last night I was playing a little bit of Lego Worlds, which is I kind of jumped back into. It was kind of cool on the Switch, with both Lego Worlds and Rocket League. So I just played like maybe a level, and that was it. And so the first time I picked it up, so I wanted to jump back into it. So that's what I've been playing.
Now, PUBG dropped a patch last week. Any noticeable feature updates that were added?
No, I think it was kind of like bug fixes and stuff. I know on the PC side they want to do that big anti-cheat patch or update. So and I guess that got delayed. It was supposed to be late last week. So I don't think they gave a date now when it's supposed to come out, but it's supposed to break down on cheaters on the PC because I guess that's prevalent. And I guess there was like a section of it that they threw out there for some software. I guess I forgot what it was called. Actually, I got the story. I think I'll cover it on Thursday's show. So stay tuned.
Okay, very cool. For me, I have been in a weird kind of, I guess I'll be walking back a little bit. So I lied to you guys, obviously, as you saw in our flock chat. I claimed that I was not going to be keeping metrics this year. That is obviously not the case. I predominantly just swerved away from keeping it in a spreadsheet because I find spreadsheet data entry to be really labor intensive, particularly on a mobile device, because a lot of times when I'm gaming, I don't have a PC up and running and available. But I am kind of keeping a gaming journal, and I have like a 3-part workflow I've broken it down into where I like track some stuff on mobile apps, and then I put them in a Dropbox folder, and then I take a break near the end of the week and aggregate them into a Microsoft Word document, and then I don't mess with that till the end of the month. So I've kind of taken the spreadsheet workflow and broken it up into 3 parts and time shifted it into spaces where it's easier for me to manage it because I have time, for times when I don't have time and times when I do have time. So then as a result of that, I've also kind of programmed this gaming, I don't want to call it a break, but kind of monthly, I'm sticking in anywhere from a 3 to 7 day window where it's not that I'm not gaming, I'm taking the pressure off. So there's a lot of discussion these days about creators. I would include us in that pool, and kind of the pressures we feel to constantly update our channels, right? So I hate to say it, but anytime a discussion comes up with us about, hey, should we, this person can't make it or that person can't make it, should we cancel the show tonight? And I'm kind of one who always says, well, I think we should do a show, even if we have to only do it with, 2 people or whatever. And that's because I suffer a little bit from this thing that's going on of like, I feel like when we don't do a show and update our feeds regularly, then I feel like there's the risk of losing the listeners and viewers that we do have, right? And I feel that way about my blog and about my Twitter channel and all that kind of stuff. So I decided, and that is a source of stress and anxiety for me, I decided I need a window where there's a little time to let my hair down, so to speak, because obviously I don't really have hair. But so basically at the end of each month, I'm kind of taking a 3 to 7 day period where I'm still gaming, but it's not under the schedule stress that I normally have of like, I've got to squeeze in game time, I've got to squeeze in game capture time, and then time to edit those and get them on my YouTube channel. And I don't do live streams. So I just kind of play, and I play kind of casually and for smaller blocks of time. So so I only put 2 games on the list. I actually played 3. I put in a few minutes on Need for Speed Most Wanted on PC, and messed around with that a little bit. But then I also played Doom on the Switch and Half-Life 2 on the PC, and I actually completed Half-Life 2 on the PC, just kind of out of the blue. I didn't realize I was near the end game until I was near the end game, and then I was like, I think I'm actually going to finish this finally. So that's what I've been up to. Swiss, what about you?
So I didn't have that much time to play the last week or so. Saturday morning, I was going to play Horizon Zero Dawn, but somebody didn't hook my PS4 controller up, so it wasn't charged. So I adapted and I played some Mario Rabbids, which is actually fun. I'm glad that I did that. I got some new games coming down the pike, which you'll probably hear about next weekend's show because I haven't touched them yet. But so yeah, I'm still kind of nursing my backlog. But the other reason why I didn't play many games, as Agascles alluded to, was on Sunday afternoon, I put together a new PC build, which has been a long time coming, and that's usually a slot when I have some time to play. But yeah, I'm not on my new PC now because I just basically put the hardware together, installed Windows, and then had to sit there and wait for it to download all the Windows updates. And I didn't have time to get to it yesterday. So it's kind of ready. Updating all the drivers, but yeah, this is I had talked to the guys on our Flock Chat channel about mechanical keyboards, because I was thinking, as I was upgrading the machine, I was like, I still have my old keyboard from my original first PC build that I did back in 2007. It was the first time I actually built my own PC. I still have the keyboard from that, and there's probably lots of jelly under some of the keys because my kids have been using it, and I got my old mouse. So I was looking to upgrade a lot of that, and the little bit that I've used the G13 Logitech, I've liked it. So I know that Prime was concerned about the noise and its propensity for directing individuals to a psychiatric institution. But I did not find it that bad. I didn't think it was overly loud. That was one of the reasons why I picked that keyboard. I didn't want something super aggressive for my first mechanical keyboard, and it just seems like a normal keyboard to me. It feels good to type on. I need to put a lot more time into it before I can give a review. But I also selected that keyboard, for those of you that are curious, because it kind of fit this niche of, okay, it's a real mechanical keyboard from a reputable company, but I didn't need all the flash. I don't care about 50 macros and being able to program it. I don't care about being able to RGB my different keys for when I play Borderlands versus when I'm playing whatever. Just as normal backlight, and it's pretty subtle. So I got that, and yeah, it's booted up and it started. So that's always a little bit of a good thing. There's always a little bit of stress when you push the power button on a new PC build.
All right. So thanks very much, Swiss. Swiss calling all of the features I selected for my mechanical keyboards into question as conspicuous consumption. So that's how we roll on the Enough to Keep Going game show. So let's go ahead and break into our discussion topic. So So, a few new games are coming out this year. And I gave a little diatribe about what I'm personally doing with tracking metrics, which I'm very curious to see as the year goes on if you guys lied as well and you're actually kind of keeping shadow metrics behind the curtain. You guys are probably not. You're probably more true to form from what we mentioned in our New Year's resolutions. But as I wrap mine up, I thought it was very interesting what my metrics showed, right? I spent a lot of time playing flight sims last month. I actually only played on 2 platforms, PC and PS4. But some other genre, but then some other genres kind of burbled to the top that kind of surprised me. One of those was third-person action games, and now I label them as third-person action games just to be a slightly easier label to handle. I've also referred to them as third-person action adventure games. And as I looked at the list of what I played last month, admittedly, a lot of them were third-person action RPGs, but not quite Diablo-esque. But definitely heavy with skill trees, right? Assassin's Creed is very heavy. Assassin's Creed Origins is very heavy with the skill tree. Infamous Second Son is very heavy with its skill tree. But the main thing I wanted to talk about as a result of that was I wanted to know what you guys are experiencing. We've talked in the past about how all of us kind of are wary of our own complacency and comfort with the genres that we're comfortable with, right? I've talked in the past about how that's a place you arrive at. I feel like as a gamer, as a young gamer, you spend a lot of time kind of experimenting with a lot of different genres. And then I know for me, I got to an age where I was like, enough with this experimentation, right? I know what I like. And, I don't care if I play, Ultimate Racer, Umpty Scrunch, 6, 7, 8, 9 every year, 4 years in a row. That's what I like to play. So, but now I'm getting back to this point of kind of pushing myself sometimes. Pushing myself towards JRPGs has not worked, but I wanted us all to kind of talk about what genres are we exploring, or are we finding ourselves experiencing a renaissance with, and finding ourselves interested in after years of saying, enough with that genre, I'm not interested. And for those of us who haven't had that experience, why not, right? And why are we sticking with the genres that we found? So. Prime, let's start with you.
All right. So I know I was talking about this a little bit on Flock, kind of going back and forth when you had pitched this, and I hadn't really thought about it at that point. But as I was thinking about it throughout the week and the last few days, I guess I have kind of, like kind of like just times throughout the year, even last year, where okay, I'm playing Call of Duty, or in this case, PUBG. I was playing that a lot. That was kind of my go-to thing. PUBG, and then Call of Duty before that. That was pretty much all I was playing. But every once in a while, it's like, you know what? I just want to play something else, and it happens maybe a few times throughout the year. So with the Switch, when it came out, obviously you got platformers, which I haven't really played for a while with Mario and some of the other games. But there was one that I could think of, which was a golf story, which was like, kind of old school JRPG, I guess, in a sort. Now, obviously, there's no fighting. You're doing golfing, but it's kind of that same mechanic where you kind of like go up to a person, talk to them, they give you a mission, and then you go out and you duel the other golfers. So that was kind of one of the genres that I kind of jumped back into, and along with that, that kind of got me into Fire Emblem, not on like a console or on 3DS, but on the mobile. What the title was called, and I was playing that, which is more of a turn-based type of combat, which when I was years ago, I couldn't get into those type of games, but now I'm kind of getting into them, and I'm looking forward to the new regular Fire Emblem game. I'm assuming it's coming out this year, probably. I don't know. We haven't heard a release date, but I want to kind of jump into those type of games and play that. And then kind of on a side note, sports games. If you want to call Rocket League a sports game, that's what I've seen it classified as. I haven't really played any sports games, but that one I've definitely jumped back into. Also, obviously you've heard me say, over the last year or so, since I've been playing that. It's soccer, obviously, but it's with cars. But it's still soccer. It's still fun. So I've been enjoying that game too. And if like a Madden or like maybe a hockey game like from EA comes out on the Switch, I'm definitely want to jump on one of those. I was thinking of getting basketball, but but I just never haven't yet. I just had too much other stuff that I was playing. Maybe eventually I'll probably pick up 2K 18, I think it is, on the Switch. Just to play basketball. I haven't really played any regular sports games in a long, long time, and I'm kind of itching to do that again. I was one of those guys that for the longest time I was buying Madden. Oh man, Madden basketball and probably hockey every once in a while, but Madden basketball every year for like just years on end. So, and I kind of just fell off of it. I think just because I got kind of sick of the yearly, not even really updates. It kind of was the same thing every year. Maybe if it was like a new console, it would kind of obviously the graphics were better, but so I want to definitely get back into those once those games come around again. Hopefully on the Switch.
So Swiss, you have been uncannily and different from your past gaming trends. You've been taking a look at first-person shooters, particularly competitive ones. Talk a little bit about not just that genre, but also about what has driven your interest into that genre, and maybe a little bit about why you have historically eschewed that type of content.
Right. Before I do, I just want to make one comment about Prime. The last hockey game I played, I think, was Blades of Steel for the NES.
Wow.
And all I remember is like the fighting in that game. Like they had the little two dudes and like the ref would come in and you just have to punch the other guy. That's all I remember. And like one was like neon yellow and the other guy was like pink because they didn't have very good jerseys. But
colors.
Yeah. All right. Wow, flashbacks. Okay, so first person shooters. The I when I was younger, I remember playing a lot of GoldenEye 007, especially with my brother and our friends. We do the whole thing where we would I get like a splitter, like a coax splitter, and we'd have two TVs, and then we would put like cardboard or whatever on the different TVs, so it was effectively making like you couldn't screen watch the other people and modernizing it in a way. I mean, I'm sure people have seen pictures of this still going on Reddit or whatever, but I remember distinctly doing that. And then when Perfect Dark came out, I remember very vividly going to Toys R Us and picking that up. And I might have been only like 16 at the time, because I do remember they raised a little bit of a stink because it was a mature game, and I had to get my mom in there to pay to get it for me. But so I remember playing console games, and even some Doom and Wolfenstein clones on PC back in the 90s. But as time went on, I never, Call of Duty on PC. I was never a huge first person shooter person. It was more like, some of the bigger titles, Turok 2, I would try to pick up and play. I got Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 because my cousin was really into it. Like, he was like one of those guys that got Call of Duty every year, and he wanted me to play with him. And I just remember getting like thrashed online because I was never very good at them. I mean, I could enjoy playing them, but it was like, I was the dude that had 1 kill and 20 deaths. And
right. So part of it was part of it then the kind of system shock or the culture shock that you go through of, it's one thing when you play with a bunch of buddies sitting on your couch co-op, and that's the competitive circle you're exposed to. But when the internet came along and exposed you to the world as a competitive playfield, did that kind of shock you away from wanting to participate in those kinds of games?
I don't think it was more like a competitive shock. Like, I never was under any illusions that I was good at the games. It was more just when I played with my brother and my friends, it was more casual. And then you get online, it was like, it just was. At that point, I had a job, and I'm like, I'm trying to compete with these 17, 18, 19-year-old kids that are can game for like 10 hours a day, and it wasn't fun. And maybe the fact that I lost the couch co-op aspect, but it kind of just turned me off. And, you made the point, and this was another point I wanted to circle back to, like, oh, we get older as we're gamers, we experiment less. And it's like, well, we have less time. And for me, it was like, okay, I can sit here and not have fun getting my head kicked in a first-person shooter, or I can go get the RPG that I enjoy playing or the action adventure game that I enjoy playing. And for my limited time resources, give that a go. So that was when I first started exploring with World of Warcraft, which was a slower pace. I never got into the PvP competitive stuff. I did PvE, but my brother and I had fun playing that for a few months, and so I'd still experiment, but it was just like, I'm going to go towards more stuff that, your bread and butter. And I don't think there was anything wrong with that. As far as what to look into it more recently, it's the genre mashup. So Borderlands 2, right? It's a first-person shooter, but it's also kind of an RPG, right? It's got like those RPG elements infused in it and the whole open world thing. And so, getting back into that first-person mode with, guns and whatnot, I'm like, I do remember having fun with some of those sort of thing. And that led me to, when I saw the stuff on Wolfenstein, it's like, you know what? I'm going to try to pick that up. I remember playing the old Wolfenstein, and it was a single player experience, but still a first person shooter. And I had a lot of fun with that. And just hearing a lot about PUBG and Fortnite, I kind of like the whole battle royale thing. And, my brother-in-law is really big into Overwatch, and I like it's not like, I like the style of the game. So I'm probably going to get one of those 3 games, one or two of them, in the coming months.
So has it been, then is what you're saying, has it been an expansion of the content in those games and an expansion of the variables that those games juggle that has kind of brought you back to them?
I think it was the fact that with Borderlands, it definitely was, because it was this, co-op RPGs like setup. But then as I played it, I remember the mechanics of the first person shooter, and I was like, you know what? I did have fun experiences with FPS games. They're not all just about having the, 14-year-old drop F-bombs at you when you're just trying to have some relaxing time for 40 minutes while your kids are taking a nap.
Well, it's different in its progressiveness too, right? In the procedural development, right? So, I mean, completing Half-Life 2 this weekend, I was like, oh, Half-Life 2 is really a fun game. And there are first-person shooters that I've played that are, well, I guess one of the things, and I'm going to get into it a little bit in my section, is I've been coming back. And I say coming back, I don't think I was ever there, but I've been finally getting interested in and enjoying and seeking out those third-person action games, which I have historically steered away from because of their unpredictability. And I'll come back to that in a little bit, but one of the key things is I've started to more and more enjoy their heavy emphasis on theatrics, right? Cutscenes are better, the story development is better than it is in a lot of first-person shooters. And so while Half-Life 2 is a great game, kind of like you mentioned, I've definitely become more interested in things like Destiny and for its time Borderlands, because it ties you into more of a concept of progression, right? Gordon Freeman is always Gordon Freeman. There's no skill progression. The 8 to 12 weapons that you have available in the game are the 8 to 12 weapons that you have available in the game. And so there isn't that kind of hook. I want to ask you, so I seem to remember, I think you and I played some Borderlands co-op together on the PlayStation 3, didn't we?
We played a lot of Rainbow Six Vegas 2, which was another example of, you and I were playing cooperatively on Terrorist Hunt a lot. And that's the type of style that appealed to me, rather than just like the guns blazing deathmatch modes.
Right. Which was never, in my opinion, the game's design and intent, right? And so one of the reasons I faded away from, I used to love playing like Rogue Spear and in some of my other Rainbow Six games on a LAN with my buddies, because we all played it very tactically and kind of slow. But when you get out into the world of the internet, like everybody wants to run and gun it like it's a first-person shooter. And I'm like, that's not really what the game was intended for.
Mhm.
So yeah. Well, but to come around, what I wanted to ask you is so last week I think there was a news story that dropped about I guess 2K. So yes, so 2K in their earnings tried to soften the blow in their earnings call, tried to soften the blow of the news of delaying Red Dead Redemption 2 by indicating that there was another major franchise that they were dropping in early 2019, which would still fall within their fiscal year, and that would be a means of defraying any perceived loss of revenue from the delay of Red Dead Redemption 2. The going theory is that that is Borderlands 3 because there just aren't that many franchises that 2K that 2K has that would be in a position where they'd be ready for a new release. So one of the things I tweeted out when I saw that news was, hey, I'd be up for Borderlands 3, but a lot of this has happened in terms of game design. And I think this is pertinent to our conversation because part of my question is it the evolving nature of a genre's game design, right? Typically driven by the release of a major game that everyone chases, right? Destiny drops, everybody chases Destiny. Overwatch drops, everybody chases Overwatch. MOBAs drop, everybody starts to try to make a MOBA. But one of my things about Borderlands 3 is, to me, Borderlands 3 needs to be more than gun porn this time around, right? Because that was really exciting, right, in Borderlands 1. It's kind of started to fade on me towards the end of Borderlands 1. I was like, how many different ways now can I mix and match guns and level them up and see them progress and collect them in my rucksack before this becomes tired? So given your revival of first-person shooters, are you looking forward to a Borderlands 3? And does it need to have anything extra in terms of what you're already experiencing in your genre revival?
I am looking forward to Borderlands 3 because Borderlands 2 has made me a fan of the franchise. But, for me, it's never been about the gun porn. It's like, yeah, I like being able to find more powerful weapons or whatever, but I've never cared about seeking them out. For me, it's always been, I enjoy the sense of humor in the game. So, going on missions, yeah, it's repetitive. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna kill these mobs, collect these MacGuffins, and return back to base. But it's doing that and hearing the dialogue that the writers came up with that makes it an enjoyable experience. So, and yeah, I like the fact that, when I was playing GoldenEye 007, pretty much every character played the same unless you were Oddjob, which I always tried to be. And so, you move on to like a game like Borderlands. I'm not saying this is the only one that did this, but okay, now we have character classes. That's cool, but that's not, for Borderlands specifically, that's never been the driving force for me. So Wolfenstein, they have the whole cool action movie hook with regards to the story, and maybe that's what it is for me. It's like if you can have a good, like you said, story hooked into it, that's great. Some of these games are built to be multiplayer platforms and built to be these competitive things. I know I'm kind of going back on what I said about Overwatch and Fortnite. There's an appeal to those games from a like purely gameplay-esque thing for me, because I want to try them out. But as far as first-person shooters in general, I don't think I'm seeking them out to see the evolution of the genre. It's just like, it's fun to do this from time to time. It's a fresh change. I like the change of pace. So I can't say that I'm going to sit here and ignore or go out and get Borderlands 3 based off how it moves the genre forward.
So probably, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say a comment on how he was mentioning Overwatch, Fortnite, and PUBG. Just kind of going forward and just listening to what you said, when you're talking about Perfect Dark and GoldenEye, when you're playing the newer games like Overwatch, Fortnite, and PUBG, when you're playing the team-based modes, and you do have to work as a team if you want to get through the game and win. So I mean, and it's kind of it's a fun thing. It's not like work where you got to, all right, this guy's going to do that, that guy's going to do that. You can have fun with it. You don't have to be like totally serious. And I think you would enjoy one of those games or all of them. Overwatch, a little bit different than Fortnite and PUBG, but it's still a team game, and you still have roles that you can do, and just kind of have fun with it. So I think you're definitely going in the right direction if those are the games you want to go to.
I played a little Team Fortress 2, and I enjoyed that. So I figured Overwatch is natural, and like I said, my brother-in-law, it's kind of his go-to game when he's not doing other things.
So probably I'm going to come back to you for a little bit because I want to dive a little deep on how. So I haven't completely understood you on this, but one of your, I guess I'll say it's an objective, and if I'm putting words in your mouth, correct me. But you have an interest in getting to one console, and that console is the Nintendo Switch. Now, how has that journey been in terms of genres available for you to play and to enjoy and to deep dive in, right? There's nothing like Elite Dangerous on the Nintendo Switch, right? So I want you to talk a little bit through what that journey has been like with regards to the genres that have been kind of in your wheelhouse, particularly in terms of your progression from having been, now you were I can't remember if you were Xbox to Xbox or PlayStation to Xbox. Were you a PlayStation 3 guy last generation and then went to Xbox One this generation?
No, I was 360. 360 to Xbox One.
So you were a 360 guy. You made the natural progression to Xbox One, but then hitched your step partway into this generation and have been placing more and more time in the Switch and less time on the Xbox One platform. What has that done to you in terms of genres that you either didn't have available or just didn't have time to play on 360 and Xbox One that you are deep diving into now?
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to on the Switch, it's just the portability that I like. And yeah, there are genres mentioned, like obviously there's no COD, there's no first-person competitive shooter. There's first-person shooters like Doom and soon to be Wolfenstein, hopefully, supposedly, some other games like that. But I'm more of the competitive first-person shooter. I don't mind playing like a single player game like that, but I just like the being able to jump online and play with people kind of deal. As soon as if I can get that, and supposedly from some of the rumors that have been swirling this past week or so, there will be a COD, hopefully, potentially, maybe coming out this year. But yeah, I mean that would be the one. Basically the Campbell that broke the back there, because I mean there's obviously a bunch of just loads of RPGs that I can play. Skyrim, Zelda, there's smaller ones on the eShop. Yeah, platformers, obviously there's Mario, and then like I said before, there's games I had never really thought about, like Golf Story. I mean, it's just a quirky little title that I picked up and I'm enjoying. Obviously you got loads of Lego games, which I enjoy too, and I can play with my family. That's always a plus too. Yeah, I can play stuff on my Xbox One too, but with the portability, I could just play anywhere with my son or even with my wife or whatever. So, and there's puzzle games. So, yeah, I mean, it even surprised me when I first got the system. I was really looking forward to it. I really thought it was a cool idea that that you could take it anywhere and you could do all these things. But until I got it in my hands, I was like, I still had my doubts, basically, just because of the Wii U.
So have you tried out Splatoon?
Yes. Yeah, I do have Splatoon. Yep.
Okay. That would be another one. I have that actually in my notes to say. That was another one that was like, oh yeah, you can get into first-person shooters again. It's not so scary. But yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna I had a question for you.
Yep.
You can go ahead and make your comment if you'd like.
I was gonna say Splatoon is good, but I mean that's third person.
Yeah, I mean shooters. I don't mean to say first person shooter.
No, I just
competitive online shooters. Yeah.
Yeah, and there has been a and this is from a Facebook group that I have, a gaming group that I'm on. There's a developer that keeps throwing up videos and pictures of a battle royale type game. And I forgot the name of the game. I can't remember right now, but I'll try to look for it. But I mean, that's another big plus. And there's supposedly the creator or one of the developers from Fortnite had mentioned that they're looking into the Nintendo system also, and even though I kind of fell off on Fortnite on the Xbox because of PUBG, if it came over to the Switch, that would be a good deal too.
So I saw an article today from Forbes. Basically, they said the Nintendo Switch is already obsolete, and that's the dirty. I don't know if they use the term "dirty little secret," but it's the secret of the Switch, and it's not a secret to you, Auguscles, or anybody, because we knew what the hardware was. But he said that's fine, and that's actually a good thing. It's an underpowered system, and nobody cares because the portability aspect is so, I don't want to say revolutionary, but it's been implemented so well that that's why it's become a runaway hit. And he basically, the thrust of the article was game graphics and scope and scale have reached a point where a good enough quote hardware platform can sell well. So you have like a different strategy for the Xbox One X and the PS4 compared to the Nintendo Switch. And maybe are you just at that mentality where, I know you have an Xbox One X and I know you probably appreciate the graphical fidelity and whatnot, but are you willing to give all that up for the convenience of the portability of the Switch?
Yeah, if I can get those couple of genres on the Switch, I'd be one console gamer. And this might be a little nitpicky, but I'm kind of getting tired of flipping back and forth between the Switch and the Xbox because of the darn buttons. They screw me up every time. The X and Y, the A and B and X and Y are reversed, and it really screws me up.
My wife actually complained about that with the PlayStation 4. The
Yeah.
one time she had to use the PlayStation controller, and then she's like, "This isn't working like my Switch." And
yeah, they're literally backwards, on the two different systems. So it just kind
Yeah,
of
the A and the B and the
the X and Y.
X and Y. Yeah.
It can be kind of annoying.
Yep. Oh no, not the X and Y. The A and the B and the A and the B are swapped.
Mm-hmm.
The very bottom button and the right hand button.
Yep. Swapped.
Yeah, which I don't quite understand.
Just need a standard, people.
It's a little sidestep from our core conversation, but I would say, my impression of that Forbes article is well, I don't know. Some of those seems like things written just because the guy needed to write an article, right? The Switch is, yes, arguably underpowered if you think about I'll call it a desktop or tabletop-based console, which is not a new story. That has been Nintendo's strategic vector since the Wii, which was 3 console generations ago. It is advanced as far as a mobile platform goes. I think the technology foundation, the platform foundation, is proven, so it's not necessarily new. I don't think it's obsolete though, but its specific implementation is very innovative. And to me, what makes me angry about the whole thing is every Android manufacturer on the planet could have done this already, but they all stood around and chose not to. And Nintendo was the one who finally came in and pushed them all aside and say, hey, I know you guys have been plumbing the space for a couple of years, but now let me show you how it's done. Admittedly, because they had to, but I don't know. That's just my slightly different perspective and take.
Well, I guess my point in bringing the article up with related to the genre is there's no longer, the hardware is not seen as an impediment to a flourishing genre spectrum on the Switch, right?
Yes. We all sat here. None of us expected. Forgive the term, but I'm struggling for words, and we're shorter on time. None of us expected a full-blown AAA first-person shooter to show up on the Switch. None of us really expected a full-blown first-person perspective AAA RPG to show up on the Switch, like Skyrim. So yeah, I completely agree with you, Swiss. Whatever it is in the special sauce of the Switch Switch, it has removed past technology barriers in terms of specific genres.
And now it's up to the consumer whether, the reduction in, okay, the limitation, it can have Skyrim, but hey, it's not going to be great as the Xbox One X version, the Xbox One version, but is that good enough? And it sounds like for a guy like Prime, that's kind of what I was getting at. It is.
Well, then your ability to take those games on the go, right? I know for me, that's allowing me to look. I was not interested in playing LA Noire, right, on my consoles. And if we think about that as a genre, right, which is I don't know what you even call that game, third person procedural, walking around, investigation game, whatever.
Walking simulator. I think.
Yeah. When that came to the PlayStation, right, and the Xbox, I was like, I don't have time for that genre, right, on this platform, but I do have time for it on the Switch. 40-hour plus RPGs, I just don't play them because it's highly likely that I'm not going to complete them, and particularly when they're 40 to 80 hours, like your Fallouts and your Skyrims, perfectly acceptable for me to play on the Switch. And I didn't even have those in my talking points for bringing up tonight as far as like genre revivals, because I still don't spend a lot of time in those genres, but I am exposing myself to them a little bit more. For both of you guys, between for you, Prime, I guess the Xbox and the Switch, and for you, Swiss, the PlayStation and the Switch. I know when I first made my foray into going multi-platform or multi-console, and I had the OG Xbox and the PlayStation 2, and for it really between those two, I definitely defaulted to there were particular genres that I tended to play on each console, right? So, and very early in the Xbox's life, it became like my main console for racing games, right? And certain others. I didn't like playing first-person shooters on the PlayStation 2. I played every first-person shooter I could on the Xbox. So, are you guys finding that any kind of pattern like that, in particular in terms of genres that you typically historically would not play or have not played? Now you're playing them on a specific console because it does that genre well.
I guess for me, it obviously it'd be the first-person shooters or just shooters in general, just because while there's some on the Switch, there's not a whole lot right now. So I probably still stick with the Xbox on that. I didn't buy Call of Duty this past year, but eventually I will, and it's going to be it has to be on Xbox. So World War II, but just stuff like that, and I mean, I really haven't played a whole lot other genres on the Xbox other than the shooters.
For me, I would say that definitely even going back, because since the PS2 days, I've always had a Nintendo and a PlayStation, whatever iteration. So for me, the PlayStation has always been like my JRPG home, because after, basically the Super NES was, had a flourishing library of that. And then after the N64 came out and like Square, abandoned Nintendo, or however you want to describe it, and went over to Sony's side, Sony seemed to have the better library there. And and the controller, I do not have a pro controller for the Switch. So when I'm playing Horizon Zero Dawn, I kind of enjoy using that controller much better. Prime's taunting me.
So it's a little dusty because I never use it.
I enjoy that control scheme more than I do playing maybe Zelda on the Switch, just because of the way the comfort, it's just ergonomically feels better for me. So that'd be how I go. So maybe some of my more serious games, I'd probably lean towards getting them on the PlayStation 4 and the Switch.
Cool, very cool. So for me, I've already talked a little bit about how I'm kind of rediscovering third-person action games. In the past, that's not been a genre that I played, mainly because I think I used to talk about on the old Casual Adult Gamers podcast what I refer to in my memory as Series 3 with Prime, which would have been you being Elemental Storm. And also a little bit on the Band of Gamers podcast is when I was in grad school, which... So that for me, that round of grad school was the last few years of the PlayStation 3. And then I guess I wrapped up right before the PlayStation 4 launched. But I still struggled to get back to third-person action games after 2.5 years of pushing them off. But I used to push them off because, to me, much more so than first-person shooters, when you pick up a third-person action game and boot it, you just don't know how much you're going to get done, right? In a 30-minute time block, a 1-hour time block. It's highly non-deterministic. You don't know. Now, this is before we got into, I guess, I'm going to call them world games, because I'm starting to become sensitive and aware that they're not truly open world, but these zone-based games where whenever you're in one particular zone, there's a set of objectives within that zone. And the openness is simply that you can select which sequence you do those missions in, and you can foot travel or whatever in between them, which to me isn't as open world as Grand Theft Auto, which you can really just wreck that whole environment, and it has an impact on what's going on in the world. But at any rate, when you start one of those things up, you don't know, right? You don't know, and it's hard. To me, it's been hard to come up with a framework that says, okay, when I open this up, my objective is to complete 4 missions, right? Or I want to do 3 campaign missions and 1 side mission, right? You open up the map and you're kind of there isn't a means of making efficient decisions that lend directly to you completing the game. You're just exposed to these zones, and eventually maybe you establish some type of pattern. So I'm becoming a little bit better at focusing on completing mission objectives within a given zone, and that's what I focus on for a period of time. It still gets a little janky because often in those games you'll start a mission in one zone and it will carry you into another zone, right? And then for me, what's effectively, I'm using the zone icons as my checklist. Right now I'm in a new checklist. But at any rate, I'm finding more fun playing those. Largely, I would say due to Assassin's Creed Origins has kind of opened my eyes and my heart to wanting to, emotionally connect with those games a little bit more. But there's a downside to that too. And I kind of wanted to bounce this off you guys because we all hyper-focused on E3 this year, or 2017, and really watched it very closely. And I bought into the hype of what I saw in the PlayStation press conference near the end when they revealed Monster Hunter World. And what I saw on the screen was, here is this game that has historically been shrouded to me and mystified, and they're demystifying it. They're putting it in a third-person action wrapper presentation format, putting it on a primary console on the PlayStation 4. Again, they put it on Xbox One, but nobody really pays any attention to that, right? In fact, I think most gamers, if you ask them, hey, what platforms is Monster Hunter World on, I think most people think it's just on PlayStation 4. But I bought into a presentation at the press conference that made me feel like it seemed like they were saying, if you've never understood Monster Hunter World, or you stayed away from Monster Hunter World because it's so deeply Eastern, this is the version for you. And I haven't put a lot of time in that game, but I've mentioned the problems I have with the first 30 to 40 minutes of it, and everything I'm hearing from people who have played it tell me this is probably not a game I should have bought because it doesn't marry up to that concept that I felt was presented at the E3 press conference.
Well, not just at the conference too. I actually heard that on different websites, how they said that, this is a more, I guess, gamer friendly, user friendly, game than it was in the past, but it doesn't seem that way. So, and originally I played Monster Hunter back on the PSP, actually, of all platforms, and I couldn't get into it either. It was just kind of foreign, and even back then it was just way foreign to me. Now maybe I can get into it, but I don't know. I'd have to really, jump into it.
Right. And I guess the last genre for me that I'll mention, which is going to sound very unexpected, I think. Yes, I'm a big flight sim lover, right? But I was watching one of my videos from my YouTube channel, Rounding Off Infinity, the other day, where I was playing Digital Combat Simulator A10C Warthog, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, I'm never going to be able to get back in that cockpit, right? Like I spent I had fun when I was shooting that video and a couple of videos on either side of it. I spent a weekend deep diving into DCS, right? And specifically on the Warthog, trying to figure it out. It took me that entire weekend. And I'm like, I don't know that I'm going to dumpster dive back into a game for a solid 3 days again. And longer if I want to actually get my teeth into any sort of like the campaign around it. I guess in modern times, one of my biggest forays into flight sims was when I used to play Falcon 4.0. But I realize now, like when I played that game, I was in grad school the first time, and I was in full time. So I was in full time. I didn't actually have a job. I was just going to class. I had just bought like my first modern era PC, and now I remember I only bought 2 games for it. I had Unreal, which came with the graphics card that I bought. And I had Falcon 4.0, and that's basically all I played until I really realized that I really wanted to get back into PC gaming. I just don't know that I have the time, as Swiss mentioned, right, being, grown-ups who game, I don't know that I have the time to master another flight sim. And, of course, with DCS, I already have, like, 3 or 4 aircraft for it, so the thought of, like, mastering all the different aircraft as well, That's a genre that I enjoy, but obviously I've swerved, as we've talked here, and we've seen tangibly, I've swerved to playing more of kind of like the flight action games, right, like Sky Rogue and Air Missions Hind, which are not full fidelity flight sims. So that's a genre I've been getting back into, but I've got to kind of pick a path through exactly how I want to continue enjoying that type of content.
Can I ask you a question? About your JRPG experience with Hunter and others? I feel like you keep trying to break into JRPGs, and every time you come out bitter. And I just don't like, what is it that makes you want to experiment with it again? Like, for me, there was a time when I enjoyed FPSs, and it's just, I set it aside a little bit, but it wasn't like I despised the genre. Like, it just isn't compatible with you, it seems like.
Yeah, it's 3 things, right? So last year, I guess I felt like last year with us kicking off the E2KG network and forming a podcast channel, and kind of expanding the mission statement that we were under on the Band of Gamers podcast, and really trying to make it a network and not just one podcast. I guess I felt kind of obligated to give JRPGs a go, right? To see if we could expand that part of our conversation on these shows. So that was 1, and maybe 2 is just periodically I feel obligated to try out a genre that I've just like blown off for several years. This past year, 2017, the other thing that ramped me up was the Switch, because this happened with the Wii. I bought the Wii, but I bought the Wii because I wanted the opportunity to play what I call core games, or the games I had become accustomed to, right? That period of my life where I said, I don't need to experiment anymore. I know what I like, right? And I'm not going to buy that game because I know that that's not my wheelhouse. When I bought the Wii, it was with the hope that I was going to see core games come to the Wii. And for a period of time, they did. We had Madden at the outset. We had like I can't remember what the name of the game was, Red something or other, where it was like a samurai, and you had guns, and you also had a sword, and you kind of had standard first-person shooter kind of combat. Yeah,
Red Steel.
Yeah. And people had problems with Red Steel, but I actually kind of liked it. The Wii was the first platform I owned where, and I have a rubric for buying games. There are some, I shouldn't say hipster gamers. There are some people who dislike, I guess, my kind of Cold War kid approach to buying games, but it's just worked for me. What I do is I find writers and websites whose opinions I generally agree with, and then basically I target buying games that those outlets score as 80% or above. I buy A and B games, and I tend to just not put my money into C, D, and F games. So on the Wii, though, I had to change that rubric, right, and be willing to dive down and buy games that didn't score as highly. because I decided I want to buy games that are in the genres that I like. I bought a 3DS at the time and eventually gave it, not a 3DS, a DSi at the time, and eventually gave it up because even though I lowered that score spec that I was looking at, there just weren't enough games in the genres that I liked to keep me entertained. Last year when I bought the Switch, I was like, okay, we did this with the Wii, right? And last year my fear was I would see the same thing on the Switch that I saw with the Wii, and I wouldn't see enough of my style of game come to the Switch. So that was another reason that I was trying to force myself into getting a grip on JRPGs, because I was afraid that that would formulate a large part of the Switch's catalog. So those are kind of a large majority of the reasons why I kept kind of forcing myself to consume that content. I made a valiant effort. I think I'm done with that. Monster Hunter World wasn't the same thing. Monster Hunter World was, again, I feel like the E3 press conference, the advertising around the game, what the media said about the game, made me feel like I thought it was kind of another Zelda thing, right? I thought it was, hey, here's a studio who realizes that it would be good for them financially to westernize the game. And so I thought it would be that. Now, again, I haven't played that much of the game. It may still be okay from that aspect. I'm more worried now. I'm worried less that this game is kind of Final Fantasy. What was the RPG you mentioned at the top? Prime. Fatal Emblem.
Oh, Fire Emblem.
Fire Emblem, right? I'm less worried that it's like that. I'm more worried about the things that I've been hearing that makes it that where people say it is like Bloodborne, or Demon Souls or Dark Souls. Those are games that I do not play because they are so shrouded. And quite frankly, they're shrouded. They have systems tucked behind systems that are veiled that make it difficult for you to figure out exactly the best way to progress. And I've never been interested in trying to solve those puzzles because, you know me, right? I'm like, whatever you want me to experience in the game, put it in the game. I'm not chasing off all over the internet trying to figure out like all your crap. And it sounds like there's a little bit of that in Monster Hunter World. And I listened to one podcast the other day, I guess the Rebel FM guys, and one of the questions up front was, how much BS is there in the game? And the guy was like, yeah, there's a modicum of BS, right? Where like enemies just take you down in ways that they shouldn't be able to take you down. And monsters charge you from across the screen, and it seems like they're not close enough to strike you, but yet you take damage and things like that. So we'll see how that goes.
You can try Xenoblade maybe. That's kind of a actiony JRPG.
So if you'd caught me 4 months ago, I would, and I had it on my list, right?
Maybe next time around.
Yeah, I was like, I think I'm going to give this a go. But as we got closer, and I heard, you guys and some other people talk about Xenoblade, I was like, I think I've lost the will to continue chasing this JRPG white elephant, right? Like Swiss is saying. So yes, I've tried Swiss, and I've pushed it a little hard. But yeah, there's just elements of that genre. Subgenre that don't sit with me, and a lot of it's because, like you said, it's time, right? I don't have time to sit through a 45-minute cutscene and then be dropped into the game, and the initial characters I start out with have absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with the 45-minute cutscene that I just watched, right? So there we are. So we are pushed up to just a bit over an hour, about an hour 4. Any major thing that you guys want to say or mention or point out that you feel like we didn't cover during the main discussion?
No, I think we're good.
Yeah, our lost compatriot may be returning next week. So
yeah, so DBQ should be sitting in my virtual seat next week, returning to the show. So yeah, and we'll be back at full strength for a time, and then Swiss might have to duck out for a little bit. Or he may not. He's trying to work around that. So that is going to do it for us for this episode of Enough to Keep Going. This has been Enough to Keep Going, episode 31, Grown Ups Who Game. for Tuesday, the 6th of February, 2018. Please feel free to like this video and other videos on the channel. Subscribe. Get your friends to subscribe would be even better. But mainly, be right back here with us Thursday night, same time, about 9:15 Eastern Standard Time for E2KG N30, the fastest gaming news show in town, where we pick 6 of the top news stories, biggest news stories, or most interesting news stories to us around the gaming industry for the week. Get you briefed up on those with a little bit of additional discussion and analysis, and try and get you merrily on your way in 30 minutes or less. That is going to do it for us for this episode of Enough to Keep Going. Thanks so much for joining us here at the E2KG Network. On behalf of myself, Osiris Prime, Swiss Guard, peace out, keep in touch, be back, we shall return.